Hi everybody, hello. Welcome. Carlo Mombelli here, bringing you lots of love from Johannesburg, South Africa. And today I want to look at something that I've really, I think I've used a lot in my process of live performance, to create stories, the art of looping, using sound designs. And I'm going to look at my process. I'm going to look at the equipment that I use to create this looping. It all started with me when, as a little boy, when I had a radio. My dad never wanted me to be a musician, really, and he had me cooking in the kitchen already. My dad was a chef, still alive. He lives in Italy, Italian chef, and he wanted me. His dream for me was to be a cook. And there's photos of me cooking in his kitchen, learning at a young age how to cook. I do love cooking, but I really, music was the thing that hit my heart, to compose music and play music. But I was always fascinated by sounds, and my first recollection of me being fascinated by sound is when my dad told me that I had a radio, and he told me that all that white noise, when I looked on FM, all that white noise were the wars that were being played out around the world, all the wars that were taking place. So I used to sit for quite some time. I would sit with the radio, I'd switch it on, and I'd look for all the noise. That stuff, no. This stuff, yes. No. No. Yes. I don't know why I did that, but I was fascinated by the sound of that. Well, they call it white noise, but I just love the sound of that. I used to love the sound of when I used to get into a lift, and I'd ride the lift up and down, because I just loved the sound of the lift when it stopped. It made incredible noises, and I started, when I watched, then I started listening to movies, and the sounds and the way that the music affected the dialogue and the sound designs in that told the stories. I loved that. And when I learned a lot about composition, I mentioned it in many videos, when I went into the forests and I listened to the sound design of the wind, the rustle of the leaves. I listened intently to this traffic noise. I would sit there and listen to traffic. It got so crazy at one point for me that when I grew up, even when you're on an aeroplane and there's a baby crying, and it irritates the hell out of everybody, I realized that if you focused on it and you listen to the incredible sound that it's making, that child is making, and you focus, and it suddenly that irritation becomes a thing of beauty. And so earlier on, basically in the 80s, I started using sound designs live. So I would take a tape recorders to my gigs, but I would first record. I would, in those days, tapes. I've got so many. I mean, people. I heard once on the radio, someone saying, "Do people still have cassette tapes?" I've got hundreds up there. I mean, my wife's made me throw out a lot because she says I'm a hoarder. I'll show you something. Maybe to prove her point. This is my first cell phone that I got when the cell phones first came out. There it is there. I've got my first cell phone. It's a Siemens. Okay, I got this, I think in 1991 or something. That's when they came out. But I've still got the manual. All right, so my wife I've got so much stuff. I've got my first computer, like 1 megabyte computer. It's an Atari. I got the first version. The first version of Cubase that ever came out. I've got it here. The whole manual for it still. And I've still got it. And I suppose I'm going to have to start throwing some of the stuff out. My wife's trying to get me to throw. So she managed to get me to throw out about 300 cassettes, but I hid a lot in boxes and stuff, and I've still got a lot of cassettes there. So, okay, I got distracted there for a moment. What was I talking about? Okay, sound design. So, I got involved. I wanted to try and find a way of creating sound design live on stage. So I used to, take with a normal cassette, used to take about 40. Used to get 40 minutes, 45 minutes. This is a 90-minute cassette, so you could record 45 minutes on the one side and in 45 minutes on the other side. But for live, I just needed for one side. So what I used to do, you could get cassettes for 50 minutes. So I would take with a little manual tape recorder, which I still have a few of, and I would record maybe the lift, or I'd record thunderstorms, and I would put loads of thunderstorms on, or birds, or running water, things that I wanted to use in my compositions. Now you must remember, in those days there wasn't anything like loop stations that could record all these different loops for you, or Ableton. Everybody's using Ableton now. And I don't like to. I understand the idea of having a computer live, and that's all very cool, but I don't like to. I like to send stuff, to bring things in with my feet rather. So while I'm playing, so first of all, it doesn't distract me from having to stop playing my instrument. I can control stuff with my feet, but also then when you bring things in with your feet, the audience doesn't really recognize that you're doing something. They just hear. Maybe you've got a part where you're singing and you needed rain, and suddenly in the music, or you need the rain, and suddenly rain arrives in the sound. The audience get taken on a journey there. Wow! it's all, so you're trying to do things unexpectedly. You're trying to add little surprises. But for me, if I go like this and I'm going to bring in rain and I go on the computer, clink, and then they hear rain, they saw the surprise coming. And it takes away that element of the performance somehow. So what I did, and I've set up something here, so I haven't set it up through the PA, but take a look here at my feet. So what I would do, okay, let's go down here. Let's go down to my other camera. So I would have my my portable tape recorder going into a volume pedal, which is switched off. This has got 15 minutes of birds on it, and then I know that my birds are going through here. This might have my lift noises. I've got 15 minutes of lift noises going into this volume pedal. So while I'm playing, so before I get on stage, I come and I switch everything on, and I had quite a few of these tape recorders with all these volume pedals around me. So before I get on stage, I quickly switch everything on, and during the gig, while I'm playing, I've got my bass on. I don't have to worry. Oops, I can I can play, and while I'm playing, I need the sound of birds. I quickly bring in the birds, and the birds come in. You must remember that all these are going into a mixing desk. So maybe a 6-channel mixing desk that then goes to the PA. So I need the sound of birds. I take the birds out. I need the sound of lifts. I go in and I've got lifts for as long as I want, and when I don't want it anymore, bring it in. Or maybe I've got birds and I've got rain, and I'll bring the birds in, and the birds are busy going away, continuing, and I need the rain. Suddenly it starts to rain, and then I bring the rain in, and the rain stops, and the birds are still going. So that is my first live take on sound design, and maybe this is like my version of Ableton, in a way. All right, so let's take a look at how I do it now. Okay. All right, so that's how I did it in the past. Now let's look how I'm doing it in the present, with all the new gadgets and things that have arrived in the market in the last few years. So I'm still using looping a lot, but not really looping. I'm not really looping. I'm sampling, and I'm setting off samples. And like I said, I don't like to use, I know the Ableton stuff is fantastic. You can set it off with your hands and you can play. But I like to still work with my feet, because I want that little bit of magic that the audience doesn't know where's the sound's coming from. They never saw anybody trigger a sound, and these things that just arrive. Well, I got hold of various little loops that I could use. My first one was a little Boss looper that disappeared off a gig somewhere. Whoever's got it, please bring it back. And then I got TC. I got a beautiful little TC Ditto looper, which is fantastic actually. I got then I got this loop station. It's a Boss RC20, and this changed away a lot of my thinking, was because first of all, with the little loops, you couldn't store the loops, Or you could just store one loop, and every time you switch it on, there's the same loop, and then you couldn't use the looper. But with this thing, it had 10 storage facilities, so I could create a loop, and then I could store it at number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. But this was extremely limited for me, because I still had to get down on my knees between songs and change from loop number 1 to loop number 2 to number 8 to number 5, and I couldn't jump them around as well. Until the most amazing looper of all times reached the planet, and this was made by Digitech, and it had the same name, the Jam Man. I don't know if it's got any connection to my original Jam Man, which is made by Lexicon, the long rack Jam Man. But here it is here. This is Digitech, a looper / sampler. And what was so brilliant about it was you could store 100 samples. It also had a long a loop time, like really long, but you could store 100 samples. But you also had one of those little SD cards, a card that you could put in, and you could store different samples on there, and you could put different ones in there and have different cards for different things. And there you could also store another 100. So I can store 200 samples on this thing if I want to. That's the first beautiful thing about it. The other one is that it's got a display. And with a display, it means that an up and a down switch. So if I'm on the gig, and can you see there's number 15, and I want to go to number 16, I just go like that, and there I have my next sample, and I can play it, I can overdub it, and I can stop it. So this changed a lot of things, the way that I started using my sound designs, because I just used to store I can store all my sound designs on there. And I've got a little table I've got a little thing here where it says where all my different samples are stored. And then I'm going to show you how I use this application live. So concerning single samples now. Alright, so I did one of my big gurus was a Brazilian musician called Egberto Gismonti. When I was a very young musician, I mean, he was like my ultimate guru. I've got all his vinyls. And what I loved about Egberto Gismonti is just his a complete natural approach, whether his music breathes. His music breathes, and it's just so, it's really just, it's from nature for me somehow. The music of Egberto Gismonti, it just touches my soul, the melodies, it really, really moves me. And then when I moved to Europe, I stayed in Europe for some time, and then I missed home, and I moved back to South Africa in 98 actually. But when I was there, when I first arrived in Europe, 1986, I got this gig. There was this Brazilian show with dancers, samba, the whole thing, and they needed a bass player. They asked me, do I play Brazilian music? And they found out that I was there with the bass. I said, and I was from Africa. I said, yeah, sure, I can do it. And I just jumped in. I didn't know how to play the music, but I just jumped in and I just played this music. And I just had the feel for it immediately. From there, I met many Brazilians. We traveled. I mean, with that show, we played in Rome. Then we got on the bus. It took us forever to get to a gig because just like me, they love coffee, and they would stop at every possible place on the way for a coffee. Amsterdam, we traveled around, but I met a lot of Brazilians, and then I started playing. I played 8 years just with Brazilian musicians, and I learned all that music. I played Brazilian shows. I played doing samba shows. I played in bossa nova trios, Brazilian bossa nova trios with Brazil. I can tell you now, to play bossa nova with the Brazilians is very different to play it with someone else, because they race and they drag at the same time. But because it's consistent, it doesn't race and it doesn't drag. The tempo just moves along. I played in a Brazilian pop band as well, playing Brazilian Javan and all that stuff. And then I finally got to play with a really serious band called Raiz de Pedra, Roots of Stone. An incredible band, incredible musicians, 2 percussionists, drums, flute, classical guitar. It was just an incredible band. We used to rehearse every week, even though we didn't have gigs. We still rehearsed. I mean, we had gigs, but when we didn't have a gig, we still rehearsed, memorized the music. We started to play on beautiful festivals, and we finally got this recording contract with Matthias Winkelmann's Enya Records. And we went in the studio. We recorded in the Bauer studio, beautiful album. And for me, the record label booked. For me, the most exciting part was the record label booked Egberto Gismonti, my guru, to play piano. And there I was, the piano, and the whole thing was recorded live. Piano, I was standing right next to him with my fretless bass. As nervous as anything, but man, we just recorded the butterflies were there and the energy. And he did something in the studio where we got us all to whisper, and we recorded all these whispers. It was amazing, it was magical. Then I decided to do something, but more like praying, like as if I was in a church. And I recorded many takes of this. Deep, very high. I tried all variations. I put it all together, and it came out so beautiful. And I sampled that. I took that and I've got it on my sampler. There's a whole prayer, like this praying, and I use it to join compositions. If I want to segue from one really deep piece to another deep piece, I can use that to join it, and it just takes us beautifully into the next piece. We can improvise on it. I can use it during a composition just to bring a little bit of something that people hear in the background. They hear this and they don't. We're playing and I bring the stuff in. Where's that coming from? It just creates a beautiful energy. So yes, I have it on my sampler. And when you're using a sampler, make sure that you always have a volume pedal, because sometimes these different samples have got different volumes. An idea is actually to put your samples on Pro Tools or something and get all the levels very similar. If you want some to be a bit louder, maybe there's some talking, you bring that up a bit, and you can also EQ them. Must make sure that you don't have too much bass on your samples and not too much highs as well. So the other thing about the sampler is, today I've got my bass going through the sampler, which is not ideal, because I want to show you how I make a certain type of sample. But the sampler must always be on a separate channel, going into a DI directly into the PA. Never put your bass through the sampler, because then the engineer can't EQ the sampler, because then he EQs your bass. And also, if you bring in you got a volume pedal on the sampler and you bring down the volume of the sampler, it brings down the volume of your bass. So I've got a channel. I go directly into I'll go to my amp, and if I do want to loop, then I've got a separate looper on. But my samples, and I might have one or might have two samplers going, and each one will have its own channel. All right, here's that sample that I did with the prayers, and I bring it in with a volume pedal. And I can play, we can jam on it. And when I want to, I can just bring it out again, either with the volume pedal, or on samplers, what you can do, especially this one, is you can set what type of ending you want. You want a square wave, stop, boop, because sometimes you do want that, or you can have a long fade out. And these type of samples I will set on a long fade out, so I don't have to worry about the volume pedal. I'm playing, I just hit the stop button, and I turn it around and I play, and I continue playing, and it fades out as a beautiful long fade, and it just ends. Okay, so that's one way that I use my samples, is I've got all these different, I've sampled lots of different things, toys, got things that I've sampled like I did with my cassette player. But then I've also made special samples for different compositions where I've got the sample. So I've got the sample, and what's nice about this, what I've learned, so you make a sample. Okay, there's sample number 1, on channel number 1. I can then, and then I save that sample with the bass, I save whatever, I have the sample, and then I can copy it to channel number 2. And it's the same sample. So if I have to play channel number 1, it goes, I have that sample and I play channel number 2, you're not going to hear the difference. And what's nice about this, it just flows between the two without you hearing the difference in it. Or if you can grab make a beautiful sample, and you can have a really flowing sample, so you can copy that to the next sample. But then what's beautiful is that on that sample number 2, I've got my basses going through. I can then overdub a new sample on top of that, add another layer to it, and save that. So I've got this sample plus another layer to it. And so you can start building your samples up that it sounds like it's one sample, but it just gets bigger and bigger, and different things get added to it. And you can go back again when you're playing live. So I've done that with a lot of my pieces, like Motion the Explorer. At the end of this video, I'm going to put down live at the Bird's Eye, my band that I had in Europe a few years ago, called Stories, with Adrian Mears on trombone, Daniel Pizzotti on cello, Deon Tarzik on drums, and then I invited Mbusa Khoza, the great Zulu singer, to join us, and he ends off this piece of music. When he comes in, it just takes it to another level at the end, right at the end of the composition. You'll take a listen to that. But I want to just show you, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to show you now how I go about creating that, so that you can see. So I've got no secrets. For me, I will show you, you know, I know there's musicians that like put cloths over their hands sometimes. I've seen it many years ago. Some teachers, they don't want people to steal their stuff. I just want you to learn everything about how I do stuff. All right. So I'm going to sit on this chair here, and let's see if I've got some sound here. All right. There we go. All right. So let's look at the sampler. Let's go to this camera here. Okay, so I know. So I've got a list of all my different samples that I've got here, but I can see that I've got. Let's just go down. So I can also just go down with the switch here. Okay, so if there is a let's chair a bit closer. If there is something on, then it tells me that there's a loop on there with that light. But now, there's nothing on 4, there's nothing on 3, there's nothing on 2. So what's nice about this machine is I can also reverse. So I can sample something and then I hit reverse and it goes into reverse. what I can also do with this is I can, before I sample it, I can put the reverse on. No, let's just start again. Okay, so I'm gonna maybe just sample something in reverse, and I don't know what is gonna come out of it, but let's just see what I can do. Okay, that's Motion the Explorer. So I won't do that one. I'll do okay, so let's sample it. It's going to be in reverse. Breathe into it. There, I have something. Now I can jam on it. Alright, so I can create a whole jam on this, so I like that. Alright, so let me stop it. Now what I want to do is I want to store this. There, hit it twice and I've stored it. Now I have it. It means that when I switch this off, doesn't matter, I've got it forever. So now I want to put it onto this channel as well. So I'm going to store number 2 onto number 3. Let's store it. So it stores everything, all the information is in reverse, etc., etc. So when I play it now, you can't even hear. There's no difference between the two. It's seamless. You can't hear that I'm changing between the two, which is beautiful. So I'm going to now record something else, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an EBO. I'm going to use an EBO because an EBO we can really hear. It's going to be something different on the. Let's just try to get it going. Damn too. Or there, I'll just add that. I'll just add a zook to it, alright? So I'm going to record it on 3 now. So it's when I hit the first time, it's playing, but now I'm going to overdub on 3. There's overdub. Okay, so I've got that one. Let me store it. Now let's see what happens. I'll go back to 2. And when I want it, here we go. So I've now built up two loops. See if this is recording. I mean, that is magic. Okay. That's recording alright, because I see on my Logic here, I'm using Logic to record this, that is distorted a bit. But you've got the idea of how I go about creating these samples. Now, alright, let me show you. So I've created And I do this when I'm recording live, when I'm recording in the studio. I've got my sample like Motion Explorer. So I've got Motion Explorer, which is based, I've got this composition. And I've just built a sample only using the first chord. And I turned it around. Here it is here. Now what did I do there? I had my sampler going. I switched it on. And as I played the chord, I brought the volume pedal in. That it sounds like, and visually, for the audience, it seems like I just zipped it in and it reversed. And it's quite louder, so I want to turn this one down a bit because my bass is going through there. So. Do a little something else. I've just added, like I'll show you how I've done it. Go back to my first loop. Whenever I want to play the other loop, I'll just go with my foot. Listen to behind it. Even more. I've added crackles. I sampled the vinyl, doing the crackles at the end of the vinyl, and then I added it on this. And then that comes now. And as the band builds up, and we just build up this energy, we build up the energy, and then we bring it down again. I bring it into this. Then the band knows that we're stopping. The band knows we're stopping. Bring it up a bit. And then the last finale is just the crackles. And I give it time. I'll wait. I'll wait. And then I got on fade. I wait and my hands lift off the piano. That's how I build up these compositions. And one thing I must tell you before I end off this tutorial about it is I want to show you how I put together a set list. So that piece of music, I put it at the end, us playing it live at the Birds. I take a listen to it. It's very powerful, that performance with Mbusa singing at the end. But now, a set list. All right, let me just talk about the set list. For me, a set list, it takes me so long to put a set list together because I see a program like a book. Each composition is a chapter in the book. It has to have a start. It has to have the finale, and then the different chapters in between. So I listen to I put the song. My song plays in my head. It comes to the end, and I hear what's coming next. And then I put it in. It's like an art. You go to an art exhibition, you've got all these arts on the wall. You don't just put random paintings everywhere. Each painting has to speak to the person that's looking at the paintings when they're walking through there. You don't realize it, but it's being placed in a certain order that you get the best out of it. It takes you on a journey. It's a story. And that's what a set list is all about. You don't just put a whole bunch of random songs together. You build up a story. And when you build up a story, you can take the audience on a journey with you, and you can build them up with you. And of course, you've got to look at, there's too many trombone solos, there's 3 in a row there. You need to there's a lot that goes into it. It becomes like one piece. Now, when I'm playing at a festival, for example, I take my iPhone, and you're only allowed 45 minutes. I take my iPhone, I put my iPhone on the stage, and when I get on, I press the start button because I've got a timer on, and my timer tells me how long I've been playing, because you've got improvisers, and you don't know how long some of the improvisations are going to be taking. The second last piece of my set is usually a piece that is fantastic, sure, but it's okay to take it out. So when I reach that point, look, okay, it's 45 minutes. If I'm at 30 minutes and I know that my last piece is going to take about 10 minutes, then it's fine. I can leave it in. But if I'm just over 40 minutes and I want to play that last piece of music, then I say to the band, let's skip this piece. Let's move on to the finale. And I still can have that flow, because it's a piece that if I take it out, so the third last piece for me is also got to be connected to that finale piece, because at festivals sometimes they get really strict. When you reach in your 45 minutes, they start nearly pulling switching the electricity off. And it's also, if you go over, it's disrespectful for the next band. They've got less of a sound check, and everything just starts not running on time. So we have to kind of look at those type of things. So then another thing is, I've got my set list on the floor, and then I put my loops. So I've got maybe from 50 to 60 on there, on my samples, I've set aside for this gig. And then I put my samples, and did you see how I stored them? I store my samples in the order that I'm going to use them on the gig. So I've got here, okay, I've got Daniel, Gentle, no sample, Bethesda. I've got a sample, I've got the prayers between Bethesda and Little Window. And then I've got number 47. I've written there 47. My sampler is ready at 47. I hit it. Then I know that the Little Window in the Kitchen is sample number. I put it at number 48 and 49. And then to end up, we're going to play Motion Explorer, which is sample number 50. And the last one is 52. So I've got it all set up in the order that I don't have to jump around. So there's a lot of thought that gets put into every single performance if you're using the sampler. And there's just this magic that happens for the audience. And I hope you've learned something about the way that I use samples and the way that I create a performance. And of course, the bow, when you've created an incredible, you've taken them on a journey, and you take that bow at the end, there's just so much power, because there's this respect that you're giving to them, to your audience, for it's like a thank you for listening, and you've imparted something beautiful to them. So peace and love for this planet, and until the next one. Hey Luigi, hey my boy, how are you? This is Luigi. This is the dog that you sometimes hear in my videos. I'd just like to end off this little session, and I hope you enjoyed it. I just want to show you basically my book, that all the stuff that I show you, my compositions, are found in a book. I put them all in a book called Pulses in the Center of Silence, and with beautiful scores of the full lead sheets, full scores, and solo bass pieces. And I've put together a little bit of my approach on how I see music, things that are important to me. So I've got 5 chapters that I've written up front. The first chapter, the elements, which I feel are tone, time, taste, ears, and technique. And I speak about each of the elements. And then chapter 2, the 4 P's, passion, practice, perseverance, and passion, the journey to the elements. Chapter 3, composition and improvisation, my approach. I write about it, how I feel about it. And then originality, chapter 4. I really feel everyone is an original. And I'll give you an insight to how I feel about that. And then chapter 5, learning and teaching. I mean, can creativity be taught, etc. And so there's quite a. I hope it's going to be an inspirational bit of writing for you. And then you have all the compositions, and this you can get from real African publishers, Johannesburg-based publishing company, and see below for the link and the website for that. Until next time, peace and love, everyone.